Today I get to deal with an oil drip out of my starter, and I'm betting that it's the O-ring that's in here that has failed. You can see little drips of oil. Now, I already started by draining the oil. That's, you might not actually have to do it. You might be able to get away with leaning the bike to the right or something, but it needed an oil change anyway, so I did it. With this video, I'm going to basically go through what it would look like to replace the starter, but I'm not going to replace the starter. I'm just going to replace the O-ring on the end of it. So let's get to it. This isn't a super complicated job, but there are a couple of little gotchas. So the first gotcha is getting the wire off. If I were removing and replacing the starter, I would need to take this nut off. Since I'm leaving the wire on because I'm just pulling it out and putting it back in, I'm not going to mess with it. But something you want to consider is holding the one nut while you turn the other one, doing 2 wrenches. Because if you spin this post, you can make a mess of the starter. But all I'm going to do, and I'm going to leave this alone, put the rubber boot back on. All I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the starter out, and I don't really need to remove it because the cable is not going to be in my way. Come on, rubber boot. Alright, nice and tight. So all I'm going to do is run out these 2 8mm bolts. Might need a longer extension. I would fully expect to drop them in the oil pan right now, so save yourself the trouble so you don't go fishing. And you should be able to wiggle the starter out. This one came out exceptionally easily. Usually they're a little tighter in there. So I'm going to grab a pick. So there's the O-ring on the end. I'm going to grab a pick and pull the O-ring off unceremoniously because it's obviously failed already. Pull the O-ring off, throw it out. And I'm going to be replacing it with a used O-ring, mostly because I have about 1 million starters and I don't have a new O-ring and I don't feel like waiting for it. So, used O-ring, if it doesn't work, I can just do it again and again and again and again and just keep doing this until I get it right. So, grabbed one of the rattier starters, one that I wouldn't want to put in inventory because it's so ugly and painted and crusty, but the O-ring looks fine on it, so I'm going to slip that on. Slip on this O-ring. Oh yeah. And wipe it down, just keep the extra dirt out. Less dirt good. And then wipe down the hole that it goes into. Now here is the other gotcha. The starter has teeth on the gears. And in there you can see a gear with also teeth. You don't want to force it in because if you do, you may end up misaligning something and just jamming all of it. So I'm hoping that everything is aligned and it slides right in, which is not the case. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the teeth a little bit and try it again. And you'll feel it slide right in if everything's clean. So now all I get to do is pop these bolts back in and test it. The problem is I don't want to test it until I have oil back in the bike, because I don't want to end up starting the bike with no oil in it. So I will obviously not bore you with the details. I put oil in the bike, and now we can try and see if it starts. And surprise, the starter that worked still worked. However, what I was listening for was I was hoping to hear, well, I was hoping not to hear grinding coming from this area, like the teeth being misaligned. If you could hear that, stop doing what you're doing, pull it out, realign the teeth, pop it back in. But hopefully this holds. And yeah, there you go. The job is as simple as that to replace a starter. The two gotchas are don't spin the post and don't jam it into the hole. Try to turn the gear on it so that it slides in nicely and everything meshes up.